What season are you in? And I don't mean what season of weather, like is it summer or winter when you're listening to this? I mean, what season of your life are you in? If you don't know, or more likely, if you've never thought about it, after listening to this episode, you might see why seeing your life in different seasons and tending to yourself like you would a garden is exactly the thing that you need to feel your best, live your best, and find success in all areas of your life. Welcome to Change Made Easy. Changing your habits, routines, and behaviors is hard. We make it easy. I'm Paul Leviton, and I help high achievers just like you who feel stuck to bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Traditional self-help doesn't work. It's either too rigid, too generic, or too overwhelming. My approach is different. I simplify change by making it so easy it can't not happen. Using my easier framework, I'll help you create habits, routines, and behaviors that stick for good, so you can stop struggling and start thriving. It's that easy. The book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is one of my favorite books of all time. You know that I've recommended it more than almost any other book on this channel, and I love it for reasons just like this. One of my favorite quotes comes from Dr. Covey in this book, and he says, "Did you ever consider how ridiculous it would be to try to cram on a farm? To forget to plant in the spring, play all summer, and then cram in the fall and bring in the harvest? The farm is a natural system. The price must be paid and the process followed. You always reap what you sow. There is no shortcut." What Covey is saying here points to the fallacy of trying to rush life, whether it's business, relationships. There are certain things in life that take as long as they take, like planting a seed and allowing it to grow. No matter how mad you get, no matter how much yelling you do, no matter how much praying, wishing, stomping, or anything else. Hey, real quick, we'll be back to the show in just a few seconds, but right now I have to ask you for a huge favor. If you're getting value out of this episode so far, take 2 seconds and share it with a friend. I mean, right now, literally, hit the little share button and send it in a text to your roommate or your cousin or your mom or your brother or your sister. Seriously, spread the love. If you like what you're hearing, then that's the best way that you can show support for this show. Because maybe you're like Eliza Kay, who said, "This podcast is both warm and inviting, but real enough to push and motivate me." Or you're like Dalton, who said, "Paul is an amazing host, and his podcast is a must listen." Don't you want to share this awesomeness with your friends and family? Don't be a gatekeeper. It only takes a second. It helps me grow and reach a new audience, and you seem like a genius friend who recommends new, awesome podcasts. We all win. All right, go send that text, and now, let's get back to the show. You can't force a seed to blossom faster than it does. It follows its own natural tendencies. And I love this analogy so much, but we can expand on it and realize that we, humans, are a lot like plants in many other ways. Just like you couldn't rush a farm, play all summer without doing the work, without sowing your seeds, and then expect to reap a harvest in the fall, similarly, you cannot expect a seed to grow in the winter. Some plants fruit in the fall, then they hibernate in the winter. No amount of wanting can change the natural order of things. You can't get a strawberry bush to grow in December in New York. It's impossible. All things in nature follow some sort of natural pattern like this. Frogs to salamanders to fish to wolves and bears. Plants, animals, fungi, they all have seasons for growth and seasons for rest. And yet, we as humans have come to believe that we can do it all, always, at all times, that we can ignore the natural ebbs and flows, and we have somehow graduated to be bigger than nature. But I'm here to tell you that that is not the case. And fighting against our natural inclinations can be the exact thing that keeps us stuck, frustrated, and burned out. Now, what I'm not saying is that you have to follow the same natural flows as a tree, and you have to hibernate all winter only to flourish in the summer. Although, honestly, that wouldn't be the worst advice. I think that following our natural inclinations, the sun is setting sooner, there's less time outside, it's natural to shift gears in those times. But when I talk about seasons of life, I simply mean more along the lines that there's a time and a place for everything. Sometimes it is a season for growing at a rapid pace. It's time to put the pedal to the metal. It's time to dig deep. It's time for late nights and early mornings. It's time for giving up on social events. It's time for putting on blinders and just powering through. There are times when that needs to happen for you to achieve certain things. A certain work project, a certain life event. You're coming up to a big turning point, and that takes an extra amount of effort. But the thing to realize is that it can't always be that way. And this is where people get stuck, because trying to go all the time only leads to burnout. So just like there are seasons for a lot of output, there need to be seasons for rest and recovery as well. Meaning it's not always the time to cut and run. Sometimes it's a time to cut back on projects. Sometimes it's a time to say no and say that right now I need to prioritize rest. I need to prioritize literal sleep. And similarly, it's not always the time to create forward momentum. You know, I talk a lot on here about growth. This show is all about creating positive change, creating positive momentum. And yet, that can't always be the case. It's not always the time to move forward. Sometimes it's just time to survive. Sometimes you just need to keep your head above water and realize that in those times, when survival is all you can do, surviving is progress. I was speaking to a client recently who was frustrated in how he hadn't progressed in health or professional goals in a few weeks. And I asked him what was going on, and he told me how busy he was at work, how busy he was with his family stuff. There was a lot going on. So I asked him, what would it have been like in the past before we started working together, before you started working on your mindset and your habits and your beliefs? What would a situation like this have been like? And he said, oh, well, I would have definitely backslid. I probably would have gained a bunch of weight back that I have lost over the last few months. I probably would have burned out and given up on some of the projects that I've been juggling. So the reframe that I offered him was that if normally you would have backslid, normally you would have sunk, then right now not progressing, which we can say is just treading water, is actually forward progress. And what I said to him is, this might not be a season for real rocket ship growth, for taking off and going to the moon. For you right now, this might be a season of survival. But in that survival, when normally or very easily you could just say, screw it, throw your hands up in the air and backtrack, simply surviving in that case is forward progress. Because in a parallel universe where you didn't have the tools to change your mindset, to change your perspective, where you didn't have the tools to keep going, to rest when needed, you would have ended up 10 steps back. So even if you're still at 0, when you want to be at 10, that feels like lost progress. But you shouldn't compare yourself to what you could be in some theoretical sense. Instead, what you need to be comparing yourself to is what you would truly be if you weren't doing the hard work that you've already done. And instead of being at 0, you'd be at -10. So when we compare 0 to -10, instead of 0 to +10, we see actual growth, even though it feels like stagnation. But that only comes when you respect the season. If you try to grow through a season that is meant for rest, when you're already juggling 10 things and you try to add 5 more, what doesn't happen is you don't juggle 15 things. What does happen is you drop all the balls. So instead of trying to do everything all the time, you can respect that sometimes are not the times to do everything. Sometimes are not the time to make rocket ship progress and go to the moon. Sometimes it's time to tread water. And this doesn't have to go with the natural seasons of Earth, fall, spring, winter, summer. Instead, this is about seasons of your life. It has to do with your kids. It has to do with your partner. It has to do with your business. It has to do with your body. There are natural ebbs and flows to everything in life. And when you learn to go with those natural flows, it's like you're swimming with the current. And when you're trying to always do everything all the time, no matter how the water is flowing, it's like you're swimming against the current, swimming up a river, and then wondering why you're getting swept downstream. You can only fight the natural flow of life so long before you get swept away in the current. And when that happens, you're often too exhausted and too overwhelmed to change it anyway. So rather than getting frustrated about being stuck or about being where you are or not making progress as fast as you would like, ask yourself, is this a season for growth or is this a season for survival right now? Can I actually ask myself to be doing more than I'm already doing? Or is it okay to actually dial back, give myself rest as a gift, and realize that growth will come along again when I have the time, the capacity, and the space to do it? If you can shift the way you look at your life and start to perform in seasons rather than asking yourself to perform all the time, which is impossible, you'll start to see that you make more change in less time and feel better while you're doing it. And that is change made easy. Before you go, I just have to ask you for a huge favor. If you enjoyed or got value from this episode at all, then take a moment and leave a rating and review in the podcast app that you're listening or watching on. If you like the show and you want me to continue to create more episodes and be able to get awesome guests that will help make changing your life easier, then this is the best way you can show support. You can leave a 5-star review on iTunes like Eliza K, who said, "This podcast is both warm and inviting, but real enough to push and motivate me." Thank you, Eliza. Or you can be like Dalton, who said, "Paul is an amazing host and his podcast is a must listen." Thank you, Dalton. And thank you to all of the over 100 people who have taken the time to rate and review this show 5 stars on iTunes, or the dozens who have left 5-star reviews on Spotify. It only takes a minute and it helps me grow, it helps me reach a new audience, and it lets me know that this is helping someone, which just feels good. All you have to do is go to the show page of whatever app you're listening to and hit the little 5 stars. Or go to the comments section on YouTube and boom, that's it. And if you really want to show love, take a screenshot when you do it and tag me in your stories on social media at Change Made Easy, and I'll shout you out in an upcoming episode. All right, go leave that rating, and I'll see you back here every Tuesday and Thursday with new episodes of Change Made Easy.